With only 3 races left in the regular season, we welcome you to the Flatout Racing Network's coverage of the 20th race of the Reaper Speedlab Truck Series. Here today in Long Pond, Pennsylvania, in the heart of the Pocono Mountains, this is Pocono Raceway. I'm Seth Cole, being joined alongside by Kyle Lawrence. And Kyle, 85 laps in total here today. The track length, the same as Daytona. Going to be a bit of a long one for these drivers. Kind of wondering, what are we in for here today? Are we looking at a tire strategy race or a fuel strategy race? Because we've seen Pocono kind of go on both sides of the spectrum before.
I think it could be a mixture of both here, Seth. A track like this, it really wears out your tires very quickly, and it really just depends on if you want to come early on in the run or later on in the run. And we could possibly see strategies involved here with that tire fall off.
Qualifying just now wrapping up, and of course, a lot of drivers very glad to be back on the speedway configuration, if you will. We had quite a fill of road courses in the last month and a half, and now these drivers down the home stretch, they'll be doing speedways here today at Pocono. In 2 weeks' time, we'll be at Michigan and ending off the regular season at Lucas Oil Raceway Park. But here today, it's basically, for most drivers, just pad the points towards the playoffs, those bonus points, those stage points, the playoff points for winning a stage. For others, there are a couple that do have an opportunity of maybe pointing their way into the playoffs. Last week, Chuck Waldrop was able to leapfrog both Andrew Navarro and Kyle Myers to jump up to the 9th seed, putting Navarro on the bubble and Kyle Myers 2 points out. There is none of those drivers, with the exception of Waldrop, in the field here this evening. So, it's not out of the realm of possibility that we could see somebody maybe here in these final 3 weeks be able to sneak their way in and knock a two-time winner in Andrew Navarro out of the playoffs.
And my eyes go straight to that number 86 machine, rolling off in 14th here tonight. Richard Malugani returning to the track here tonight. He's only looks like a little over 50 points outside of the top 10. The driver, the number 86 for Thin Line Racing, looking to maybe join his teammate up there in the top 10 before we get to the playoffs.
Last time out, we saw Boyd Hogan go to victory lane for the 6th time this season. Continues to lead the overall point standings, 25 points in tow between himself and the 99 of Christopher Hill, and he's got the pole position here tonight for this one. He'll be alongside of Nathan Jurgensen, who ironically were first and second on the board in practice, so followed up that speed here in qualifying. Tanner Love, Will Cooley going to be there in row 2. We saw Cooley about a month ago go to victory lane at a road course. Braxton Deweese, we've talked about just how consistent he's been in the last 2 months, 2.5 months, up there inside of the top 3 in overall point standings right now, completing your top 5 in qualifying as we show you the rest of your starting lineup here tonight. But is it everybody versus Boyd Hogan and Nathan Jurgensen right now, or based on the fact that we know Pocono can be a strategy type race, is there somebody we might look at back in row 2 or further back in the field to maybe snipe a checkered flag this late in the regular season?
There's 3 names I'm going to give you, Seth. And those 3 names, first of all, is Christopher Pfeffer. Put down a great practice lap, is always very strong pretty much anywhere we go. So I'd expect him to be up there competing. Christopher Hill, he didn't put down necessarily the greatest practice laps, but he is always competitive almost anywhere we go as well. And Jonathan Delaney, a driver that's really been on the brink of a victory, in my opinion. Up here in the top 5, top 3, almost any time he's competing. And he was very fast in practice as well. So watch for that number 12 truck.
Talked about Pfeffer. Only 6 drivers took time. Pfeffer will be rolling off from the inside of row 4 alongside of Jonathan Delaney. Christopher Hill will be 9th. Agno Phillip will complete the top 10. Chuck Waldrop and Matt Knight, they'll be back in row 6. Ryan Strunk in the 77 truck here tonight. I believe he's making his first start on the season. He'll be sharing row 7 with Richard Malagani, and that's the 14 drivers that will be taking the green flag here this evening. 3 corners, 3 entirely different, unique corners that these drivers will have to traverse here today. We do have a stage caution that will come out at the completion of lap 21, but Boyd Hogan brings us down to the green, and we're underway here in the Pocono Mountains.
Braxton Deweese looks like he gave a shot to Tanner Love on that start. Deweese got off to a great restart and gave big shots, the 28 of Love, and Love's going to try to send it in going into turn one to the inside. Not quite able to get to the inside of his teammate, but they're going to get stacked up behind him. You have Pfeffer on the inside, Jurgensen on the outside. They're 3 wide right behind them. They might be 4 wide off the corner.
Jurgensen going the wrong way as he's dropped from second back to third. At 3 wide involved Christopher Pfeffer in the 66. He was way down low heading into the tunnel turn, and he has faded to the back of this group. As a matter of fact, I think he's lost touch with him because he backed off a little too much. Battle now is going to be for the 4th spot. Will Cooley in the 00, Braxton Deweese in the 8.
I'm thinking Pfeffer might have a problem. He is way back there, way off the pace. I'm not sure what is up with the 66. Might have to come down pit road this time by.
Saw his left rear catch the grass there going into turn 3, and yeah, to your point, he is coming down pit road, shaking that truck back and forth as he brings it down to pit road speed, so something obviously not feeling right for him.
Very unfortunate, put down some great practice laps, and it's going to be difficult to come back in this race. A track like this, after a couple of laps, especially with the open setups, after a couple of laps, these drivers might really spread out. We might not get a caution in today's race. Oh, and there goes Pfeffer, actually. Pfeffer has retired from the race early. You hate to see it.
Might make you wonder even more just what was going wrong there, if it was something to do with the truck, if it was something maybe to do with the racing setup, maybe the sim rig, I don't know, but whatever it was, he's out of the race, going to finish in the 14th position here tonight. Doesn't have any danger of falling outside of the playoffs with only 3 races remaining. He came into this race holding on to the number 4 seed, of course a 2-time winner as well, but certainly someone that we expected to see in this for the long haul and out before we even got to the completion of lap 3 as things have gotten single filed out at the front. Boyd Hogan continuing to show the way, but he has not been able to pull away from everybody else. Tanner Love, Nathan Jurgensen, they're keeping him honest.
I kind of expected Boyd Hogan to do his normal thing at the beginning of these races when he starts up at the front, just kind of pull away, and he hasn't really been able to pull away much yet. I mean, he's gotten away from Jurgensen, I guess, a little bit. Jurgensen's moved back to the 3rd spot, but Tanner Love is right there. He's just keeping him honest right now.
When we were following the issues of the 66 of Pfeffer, you saw that also back there in that vicinity was the 77 of Ryan Strunk. Strunk elected to start this race from pit road. He is on the lead lap, albeit about 9 seconds behind the race leader. We do have that one guaranteed caution that's going to come out tonight at the completion of lap 21 for the completion of the stage, but then after that, I think you're kind of on the right track there, Kyle. I think we probably won't see another yellow flag for the remainder, and so that means that pit road is probably going to be the biggest player into who's going to win this race and who's going to come up runner-up.
Yeah, I feel like it's going to be all about strategy here. I think you might be able to make it on one stop. I'm thinking you can, but at the same time, the tire fall off is just so huge here. After 20-25 laps, you're already almost 2 to 3 seconds off your quickest lap. So I wouldn't be surprised at all to see some of these drivers elect to take a two-stop strategy. It could possibly work today at a track like Pocono.
Of course, mentioned as well, this track is the same length as Daytona, and at Daytona, you can complete a green flag pit stop, return to the track, and still remain in the lead lap. It's the same deal here at Pocono. If you're running far enough up towards the front, come down pit road, complete a 4-tire pit stop, and there's enough distance on the track that you can return onto the racetrack still on the same lap as the leader. And with that being said, we might end up seeing some drivers pull off some short pit strategy in the second half of this race. Battle is on for the 5th position. Will Cooley, he might have gotten out of shape just a few moments ago. Braxton Deweese was able to get around him, and now Agnew Phillip jumps to driver's right.
Ralph Hutchinson in the 51 right there as well. He's looking to maybe make this battle interesting. Oh, he's going to get in front. Oh, that was close for Hutchinson.
There was definitely contact between him and Christopher Hill as he almost went around off the nose of Jonathan Delaney, so close. Exiting turn 3 and onto the front straightaway there for the drivers 7th through 9th, but no harm, no foul. We're still green flag racing. Everybody's truck's still in one piece. You were talking about the fact that it's open setup, and I was thinking about this coming into today's race. Of course, these drivers utilizing this opportunity to set up trucks for the upcoming Road to Pro race here. Is that a luxury or a hindrance for these guys, having the opportunity to be able to edit the setup to their comfort level? Because I almost wonder, if you make just the wrong adjustment, then you're fighting that truck until you're able to make an adjustment to counter it here at the completion of the stage. If you're on a fixed setup type race, then everything you're struggling with, more than likely the rest of the competition is struggling with.
It's interesting because you could be aggressive with your setup just as you could be aggressive as a driver. You can get aggressive with that setup if you feel like you're one, maybe two changes away from picking up a couple of tenths. You can make that one or two changes. You can pick up that tenth or two, or it might go the opposite way. You might lose 2 or 3 or 4 tenths. You can really especially at a track like this, like Pocono. Like, setups are everything. Your car needs to be perfect for your feel at a track like Pocono because it's just such a different track. All 3 corners feel completely different.
See the distance from the leader back to second, only a truck length from second back to third, and then a truck length and a half back to Braxton Deweese and Agno Phillip. I'll tell you what, that 4th and 5th place truck, they're putting down some pretty good lap times right now, trying to break up inside of the podium.
I feel like this is kind of the sweet spot right now at the moment. 4th or 5th, you can just kind of maybe hang out around that area. You can use the draft to maybe save your tires a little bit. Have these cars pull you down the straightaway and have you keep up. You can take it a little easier in the corners and back it off a little bit and have the draft pull you right back in. I feel like this is a nice sweet spot if you want to save your tires. But Phillip and Deweese going at it a little bit right now. No saving tires at the moment.
Phillip going to complete that pass. Deweese all over the back bumper as they'll head into the tunnel turn 2, the faster of the 3 corners here at Pocono, and Will Cooley up a little high on exit. That opens the door for Christopher Hill to take a peek to the inside, and he'll take the 6th position away before they enter turn 3.
Hill's been slowly moving his way through the field. Delaney hasn't really moved up too much. He's got in front of the 51 of Hutchinson, but these two started a little farther back than expected, and they've been slowly trying to move their way through the field.
As of right now, Agno Phillip has picked up the most spots since the drop of the green flag. Started 10th, up 6 spots to 4th. Christopher Hill, that we're looking at right now, up 3 positions from his 9th place starting spot. And Richard Malugani has also picked up 3 spots since the start. He was 14th on the grid, right now running in 11th. But maybe more importantly there for that 86th, you were talking about him being that guy to watch in these final 3 races to maybe point his way up into the playoffs. Just how much importance would there be for Malugani to get that extra spot ahead of him and Matt Knight, that 10th position before we get to the end of the stage, get that stage point, or is it just make sure that you run all the laps here today?
I feel like the first priority is make sure you keep that truck safe and sound and make it to the end of the race. But if you can get more spots, go up there and get more spots, because the drivers he's competing with to get this last spot in the playoffs are Kyle Myers and Andrew Navarro, 2 extremely strong drivers. Anytime they've been on the racetrack this season with Reaper Speedlab, they've been not just competing for a top 5, but usually competing for a win.
Almost wondering, look at some of those guys back there. This is a big enough racetrack, as we've already talked about. Things have obviously gotten spread out, but if it's possible, if you have the right amount of interval between you and the race leader, let's say we get to lap 18, lap 19, get close to the end of that stage, do you maybe come down pit road, take that pit stop then and there, try and stay on the lead lap, and then when everybody else comes down pit road under the stage caution, then leapfrog everybody, stay out, and be the leader when we go back green?
You can pull that off at a track like this. You were saying earlier, you can stay on the lead lap as long as you're close enough to the leader and come down pit road. I can definitely see that, Seth. I can see multiple drivers coming down pit road before we get to this stage break and changing those tires, staying on the lead lap, and gaining some spots. I can definitely see a driver maybe like Christopher Hill or Agno Phillip, who seem like they both have a lot of speed right now, running in 4th and 5th. Maybe trying to leapfrog these drivers by doing that.
Christopher Hill trying to get the overall points lead. Only 3 races remaining. There's bonus points to the regular season champion once the playoff points are reformatted. Wow, what a move there by Delaney as he just barely cleared his back bumper across the nose of Braxton Deweese. Delaney is starting to move his way back up towards the front. Got around Will Cooley just moments ago and complete the pass on Deweese for 6th position off of turn 3. Talk about guys that are moving forward. There are a couple of guys, though, that seem to be struggling and falling back. That 00 of Will Cooley appears to be one of them. I don't know if it's a case that he's using up his stuff right now, if the truck's just not to his handling, or could he be playing it ultra conservative, trying to save those good years for longer in this run?
It could possibly be that, but I'm honestly thinking with Cooley and Deweese that their tires are just really falling off at this point in the run. And they might have just used those tires up a little too much at the beginning portion of this run, and now they're going to begin to fall back. But it's good to learn now. They might have been pushing those tires intentionally just to see how hard they can push those tires before we get that stage break, because they're going to get all caught back up at the stage break.
Taking a ride on board with Christopher Hill in the 5th position as he'll head down into turn 1. 14 degrees of banking, modeled after Trenton Speedway in New Jersey. And the long stretch here heading down towards the fastest corner, the tunnel turn. You saw a lot of wheel play there, counter steering off of turn 1. So obviously those tires, that grip starting to go away for Christopher Hill as he pulls up to the back bumper of Agno Phillip for that 4th position. Here we are into the said tunnel turn. 8 degrees of banking here. It's modeled after Indianapolis Motor Speedway of all places, so another high-speed racetrack that it's similar to. And then down here into the lowest banking of the corners, 6 degrees of banking, turn 3, modeled after the Milwaukee Mile. And you see right there maybe the most wheel play off of turn 3. Not a lot of banking for that right rear to be able to lean into when you head onto the long straight.
Saw there Christopher Hill making completing his pass on Agno Phillip. It looked like Agno Phillip just took it easy. It looked like Hill really wanted the spot, so Agno Phillip just kind of moved out of the way and gave him the spot, taking it easy on those tires and maybe just trying to learn what he can do on these runs at the moment. And Delaney, you mentioned him a moment ago. Delaney's closing in. He's right there at this point.
I'll tell you what stands out to me is we are almost 15 laps into this race. Your top 6 are separated by less than a second and a half. I kind of thought that maybe we'd see 1 or 2 drivers pull away from the rest of the field, but that has not been the case. It's only about 3.5 tenths of a second from Hogan back to Tanner Love, and then you've got them nose to tail with Jurgensen, Hill, Phillip, and Delaney. So nobody has gotten away from anybody else, which says to me if this keeps up, strategy is going to be even more important when we get to the second half of this race, because even just a couple of seconds gained on pit road could be a position gained on the racetrack.
Every second's gonna matter at this point. I'm surprised as well, especially with this being an open setup. It's you usually see a lot more separation, and these drivers are just so close. It just really shows how hard these drivers and teams work on these setups to just get them all even like this. It's very, very impressive.
Well, drivers in the playoffs, they get those playoff points from stage victories and, of course, race victories. Boyd Hogan has accumulated 34 playoff points at this point in time, and he's looking to continue to add to that as he's trying to pick up this stage victory. Tanner Love right there with him, and Nathan Jurgensen, who was one of the fastest in practice and spending most of this run up inside the top 3 just like that. Looked like maybe a little too high off of turn 3. And he opened up the door for Christopher Hill and Jonathan Delaney to move on by. So in a matter of maybe a couple hundred feet, the 31 truck goes from 3rd back to 5th and might lose that with Agno Phillip breathing down his neck.
I've been just watching Delaney. These last couple laps, the last 3 laps, each lap Delaney has been the quickest driver on the track by 2+ tenths. He seems to have a lot of speed on the longer run in that Chevrolet there, as they're right behind the 99 of Hill, looking to possibly make a move here before the end of the stage.
It's very interesting when you look at the fact that Jonathan Delaney, teammates to Ralph Hutchinson and Will Cooley out of Lockdown Racing. Delaney's going forwards. Ralph Hutchinson's kind of stalled out, and Will Cooley's going the wrong direction. So you got to wonder if they're all running different setups, and if maybe the drivers of the 51, the 00 are saying, hey, Delaney, what did you do to make your car, or your truck in this case, hook up so good? And start moving its way to the front. I wonder if those kind of adjustments might be made on this upcoming stage caution.
Because whatever Delaney has in that car, it seems to be working, moving very fast. That last time by, Hill was actually a little bit quicker than him. Right now, Delaney just seems to be struggling a little bit with that dirty air, possibly from the 99 machine. Not missing anything up at the front. Hogan is trying to maybe gap the number 28 of Love a little bit more, but just hasn't been able to pull away. It's just been really impressive how close in proximity these drivers have been racing here so far.
There's only been about a tenth of a second per lap that Christopher Hill and Jonathan Delaney have been gaining with their dropping a little bit tighter down these straights. Now they're going to maybe lose some ground as they'll stall each other out in this side-by-side battle for third going into turn one. But they were little by little chipping away at first and second, because you can see there's about 3-4 truck lengths between Hogan and Love, so neither one of them really helping the other in terms of long straightaway speed. Now as Delaney makes his way around the 99, we'll see if he gaps Hill or if he's going to keep the 99 with him to be able to continue to get that straightaway speed. I mean, it's about maybe 2 or 3 miles per hour difference between third and fourth to first and second, but that can pay dividends here coming down to the end of the stage.
Coming down to the end of the stage, Delaney is running the quickest time. Does he have enough time to get past Love and possibly get to Boyd Hogan and steal this stage win at the end? It's going to be an awfully tough task. Only has a few laps to do it.
It's about 3.5 truck lengths off the back of Tanner Love. And then he would have about 4 truck lengths to make up on Boyd Hogan. Remember again too, the stage caution does not fly until all drivers in the field have crossed the start finish line to complete their 21st lap. So you look at the case that Ryan Strunk, last truck on the lead lap, is about 17 seconds back. That is an extra couple of lengths of racetrack that Jonathan Delaney would be able to work with if he can put Tanner Love in his rearview mirror and just have it be a battle between himself and Boyd Hogan. But time is starting to run out, and you got to wonder just how much tire does Delaney have left.
And I was watching to see if anybody would come down pit road, and I was surprised to see no one come down pit road before the pit entry closed. It was a opportunity to possibly get some track position right there for some of these drivers. So I was really surprised not to see anybody come down pit road, but they might just really want these stage points here and now.
Yeah, especially maybe a Nathan Jurgensen or an Agno Phillip, who are running up in this lead pack. Remember, they're running on a part-time schedule. They are not running for points. So they're just running for trophies, and so wouldn't have to worry about accumulating any stage points for either of those two drivers. So why not come down and try and flip the stage? But your point, pit road would be closed, and these drivers now are basically just running to the checkers and or to the green-white checkers, I should say. Noticing that a couple of drivers have now fallen outside of the top 10. Chuck Waldrop just fell outside the top 10 a few moments ago. Richard Malugani has dropped from 11th back to 12th position, so neither one of those drivers right now in line for stage points. Of course, Malugani trying to make his way up inside the top 10. Waldrop trying to put a cushion between himself and that cut line after moving up inside the top 10 last time out. And there is the caution. So it looks like it came out rather at the completion of lap 20 onto lap 21, but this would be the stage yellow that we've been waiting for.
Stage caution is out, and Boyd Hogan winning the first stage in dominant fashion, leading the whole stage. But maybe if we got a couple more laps, Delaney might have been able to get there. But at the same time, it looked like right before we got that caution flag that Delaney might have stalled out a little bit. Maybe the tires had evened up a little bit at the end of that run.
Boyd Hogan, if everybody keeps the positions they're in after they complete their pit stops, he's going to have some new faces back there that might be challenging him when we get ready to get the second stage underway. Delaney up to third, Christopher Hill up to fourth. Agno Phillip has moved his way up into the 6th position. All 3 of these drivers started outside of the top 7. So we'll see what they've got for the 96 here. Long run, but Hogan with the victory. Tanner Love going to be second, so some very valuable stage points for him. Another playoff point for the driver of the 96. That'll make a total of 35 playoff points at this point in time.
Yeah, you have Delaney and Hill up here now, who started a little further back in the pack, and they seem like they have a lot of long run pace. But at the same time, Hogan started on the pole. I don't think he's shown us his hand yet. I don't think he's shown us how quick he can possibly go around this track and how much harder he can possibly push that truck, because he hasn't had to. He's had his teammate Tanner Love behind him, and Love hasn't really given him quite a challenge yet. He hasn't gotten close enough to make any sort of move on the number 96. So the 96 of Hogan has been just kind of hanging out at the front right now, maybe not showing what he's fully made of at the moment.
All 13 trucks running, still on the lead lap, so no free pass under this caution. Only driver out of the race, Christopher Pfeffer in the 66. Pit road will be open this time. No doubt, everybody going to be down pit road here, and we'll see if somebody's going to be able to rely on their pit crew to gain them a position or two here on pit road, because, you know, a lot easier to be able to pass them on pit lane when you're going at 55 miles per hour rather than out there on the tricky triangle.
And it's really going to depend on the pit crew and how well these drivers can get into their box. Can they get into their box quickly? Do they overshoot their boxes? Do they get in a little early, a little late? We'll have to see right here who's able to have that quick stop and get into their box properly. Oh, Hogan overshot his box right there.
Yes, he did. Wow. That could be a lead exchange right there.
That was huge. He didn't overshoot his box by a little bit. He overshoot it by a bunch, but he reversed very quickly. He might lose the lead here, and he will. He's going to lose a whole bunch of spots.
Came out 6th, I do believe. That is going to put the 96 behind the 8 ball, because he spent the first 20 laps of this race out in clean air. Now he's going to have to figure out how his truck feels back in traffic, as Jonathan Delaney won the battle off pit road over Christopher Hill and Tanner Love.
Yeah, the Legacy boys had a struggle on pit road. Tanner Love falling from 2nd to 3rd and missed the opportunity to possibly take the race lead from Boyd Hogan, and Boyd Hogan falling from the race lead all the way down to 6th. I was just talking about how he hasn't probably shown us his true speed. He hasn't shown his hand yet. I think we're going to see it possibly on this restart, Seth. He might get a little bit aggressive to try to get back up to the front, because Christopher Hill and Jonathan Delaney have fast trucks, especially on the long run. Them up in the front, it's going to be really difficult to beat them.
Well, not only did Boyd Hogan overshoot his pit stall, but his pit crew gave him the second slowest pit stop out of the top 6 that left pit lane at a 14.6. Slower than that, 14.7 for Agnew Phillip, who came out in the 5th position. So kind of a double whammy there for our Stage 1 winner.
But if there's anybody that can work their way back from that, it would be Boyd Hogan. We've seen it all season long. He's had some issues here and there, but he usually comes back from them and at least gets back up there and competes for the victory. We'll have to see what he's able to do here tonight at Pocono. But restarting in first on the inside is going to be Jonathan Delaney, and on his outside is going to be Christopher Hill. This is a restart to watch here.
Boyd Hogan and Agnew Phillip mentioned the slow stops they had. Well, they've decided to come down pit road, top the fuel tank off again. I believe that also Braxton Deweese and Richard Malugani have come down pit lane. So we haven't even gone back green, and the fuel strategy games are already beginning.
This is a very interesting call. I'm thinking that they might try to make it from here. That'd be a very long way to go, but I guess it might be possible around 60 laps, or maybe trying to split it perfectly in half. I'm not exactly sure here what the strategy is, topping off the fuel.
You talked about the possibility of two-stopping here in this second stage. Could it be the drivers that stayed out, they'd be on the two-stop strategy? Those drivers that came out and topped off, they're looking at maybe just making it on one more pit stop?
Yeah, I think that would be the strategy. Those drivers that just came down pit road are going to try to drive as long as possible on those Goodyears, and when they come down pit road and fill it up, they'll get those 4 tires, and they're hoping that when they make their pit stop, it'll probably be roughly around the time the other drivers are making their second pit stop, and maybe time it correctly where the tires will not be an advantage for the opposing strategy.
Getting ready to go back green here for the second and final stage of tonight's race at Pocono. Flatout Racing Network is going to be bringing you coverage of the remainder of the regular season leading up to the playoffs over the span of the next month. August 3rd, we're going to be bringing you coverage from Michigan, and then August 17th is the final regular season race at Lucas Oil Raceway Park. But here tonight, it's time to find out who's going to finish the deal at Pocono as we're back underway with 60 laps to go.
And a great restart from Jonathan Delaney. Great restart, gets out into a couple truck lengths advantage going into turn one. The battle's on between teammates. Love versus Hill for second. Delaney pulling away a little bit here with those two battling. Love is trying to clear Hill off the corner. Oh, and there's a wreck in the back. And look, was that wall drip that spun into the inside wall? It looked like wall drip.
Indeed.
Oh, man, you hate to see it for wall drip. Just moved himself into the top 10 in the playoffs. Luckily enough, his other competitors that are competing for that final spot aren't here tonight, but all the points matter here in the last few races.
Second caution of the night here at Pocono. First caution for cause. And we'll go back and take a look and see what happened to Chuck Waldrop to bring out the first caution of the second stage. Like he was battling around with, I believe it's the 77 of Ryan Strunk, I think, is the truck that's behind him.
I'm not sure what's going on here, but Christopher Hill just sped on to pit road, going 100 miles an hour to change tires. I'm not sure what's going on with that. Oh, he's actually exited the event. I'm not sure what that was about, but Christopher Hill is now retired from the event as well.
So both Christopher Hill and Christopher Pfeffer out of this one. You saw the incident there with Waldrip, got a little help from behind from Agno Phillip. The 77 might have gotten his left sides down on the apron. That pushed him up the racetrack, lost him momentum, and Phillip was there. We're going to ride on board with the 7 of Waldrip. As he drifts low there, unsettles the truck. He's trying to save it, but 94 behind him, and ooh, wow. Pretty good impact there at the ending of that first safer barrier, and then hits the second safer barrier further on up.
Yeah, pretty big hit for Waldrop, especially at a track like Pocono. That's going to just ruin any chances he has of being competitive. At this point, he's going to be hoping that there's more incidents like that with other drivers so he can snag as many points as possible.
Of course, this isn't a super speedway like Talladega or Daytona, but with these long straights, you want to have an aerodynamically sound truck to be able to get the best straightaway speed you possibly can. I mean, that's how we saw Delaney and Hill when they were starting to reel in Tanner Love for second place. They were able to lock bumpers down these long straights and kind of tandem their way closer towards the front. But now with Hill out of this race, that is going to give a little bit of breathing space to Boyd Hogan, as the last couple of weeks, Christopher Hill has been trying to reel in Boyd Hogan for that regular season championship, the overall points lead, and picked up 10 stage points here tonight and a playoff point with that stage victory did the 96 of Boyd Hogan. And now with Christopher Hill in the garage here, going to be more points that Boyd Hogan is going to gain heading into Michigan in 2 weeks' time.
It looked like everybody decided to switch. Well, at least some of these drivers decided to switch it up on their strategy choice. And looks like there's only a couple of guys that ended up staying out underneath this caution. All those drivers that came down pit road earlier to top off on that last caution, they did the same thing. They topped off on fuel, and you had a couple other takers that decided to join them on pit road and top off on fuel. And you only had 5 drivers that stayed out underneath the caution. You have Delaney, Tanner Love, Jurgensen, Hutchinson, and Matt Knight all decided to stay out. So it's going to be interesting to see what the strategy is for these drivers and what they're able to pull off with the fuel they have in the tank.
It's also important to note as well that they did fuel only because these drivers now have only one more set of tires waiting for them on pit road. They were given 3 sets of tires here today, the set that they started on, the set that all of them are currently on when they made that pit stop after the first stage, and then 1 set remaining here for the final, well, now 58 some odd laps. So they've only got 1 more pit stop that they can make to take on tires, which I almost wonder if that would shoot down any strategy of trying to 2-stop it from here, because, you know, you take tires on for 1 pit stop, but then what do you do for the second? Fuel only and go out there with worn tires?
I'm not exactly sure what the strategy is here. I think these drivers are thinking they might be able to honestly make it the distance from here. It seems like a fairly long way, but they might be able to. It seems like a fairly long way in distance, though, to make it on one tank of fuel.
Lights out atop the pace truck, so we'll be going back green flag racing here momentarily. Jonathan Delaney, the leader. Tanner Love will be second. Nathan Jurgensen third. Ralph Hutchinson in fourth. And Agno Phillip right now completes the top five. Matt Knight would be sixth. Will Cooley seventh. Ryan Strunk in eighth. Boyd Hogan right now ninth. And Braxton Deweese completes the top 10. Richard Malugani and Chuck Waldrop are in 11th and 12th. Two drivers out of the race. Christopher Hill will finish 13th. Christopher Pfeffer will finish in 14th. No driver was a lap down after this second caution of the day. Only two cautions tonight so far. Stage caution came out at lap 21, and then the Chuck Waldrop spin out of turn 1, putting us under our most recent yellow. And we'll see now whether these guys are going to settle into that long run that we're expecting. We kind of expected that once the green flag flew to begin the second and final stage, we probably wouldn't see the flagman waving anything until the white flag had to be displayed, but I don't know. Does this extra 3 or 4 pacing laps, does this change up anything in terms of strategy, or is everybody still on the same strategy they were when we got started with stage number 2?
Seems like most of these drivers are probably going to stick to the same strategy. You're talking about how we were thinking we weren't going to see any more caution flags. But if we're going to see a caution flag, if we're going to see an incident, it's going to be on these restarts most likely, because everybody's just so stacked up. As the iRacing pace truck pulls down pit road, we're going to go green flag racing once again here after caution number 2.
Jonathan Delaney accelerates in the Geico restart zone. Another great launch. And before we had that caution come out, Delaney had a launch in the last restart, and it opened up almost a half second back to second place, which amazingly enough up to this point was the biggest interval we had seen from first back to second all night long.
And drivers, Hogan just wasn't able to find that separation earlier, and on that last restart the battle was on for second, but we'll see if Delaney's able to pull away this time. Jurgensen does not have a battle right now, hanging out in second, just trying to stay in his draft. But the battle is on for the 4th position, as it looks like it's Hutchinson versus Phillip, and Cooley wants to get into it as well.
Cooley up on the top side there with the 51 of Hutchinson. Those are teammates out of Lockdown Racing, trying to get around the top side of Agno Phillip in the 94. Got to be careful off turn 3 here. The truck on the inside wants to slide up into the truck above, and the truck on the outside wants to slide up into the outside wall. You see Agno Phillip pull way low there to be able to tuck in line back in the 6th position.
You need to get back into that draft, especially on that long front straightaway. If you're not in that draft, you're just going to lose a lot of speed unless you have a fantastic run off the corner. Then send it to the inside and immediately try to get back up front, up to that high side. I mean, here comes Jurgensen. Jurgensen's actually going to send it for the lead here. Had a great run off 1, and Delaney's going to let him have it. Not too surprising. Delaney took it very easy on his tires in the first run, and he might be doing the same here.
Riding on board there with Jurgensen when he made the move. Of course, the art of side drafting when you get to the left quarter panel doesn't make your truck faster. It makes the truck you're trying to pass slower, drags them back to you. And with these long straights, a lot of opportunity for side drafting as Nathan Jurgensen going to lead his first lap of the evening here. Mentioned he was really fast in practice, and now he's starting to show it here in the early goings of this restart.
Tanner Love had a great run on Delaney, had a great draft coming down the front straightaway, sends it to the inside in turn 1. Delaney gets a little loose, but he's going to keep his speed up and keep it going. Great job by Delaney. Going to hang on to the 2nd spot for now, and Hutchinson, he's putting the pressure on in the number 51 right behind.
Ralph Hutchinson, 4th truck in this line right now, waiting to see if any of the top 3 make a mistake. He's within striking distance. Will Cooley, just a couple truck lengths back, currently holds down P5 as Agno Phillip begins to close up the battle potentially for that final spot inside the top 5.
Yeah, Phillip's just hanging out right there behind Cooley. Maybe taking it a little easy on his tires this time by. He might have learned his lesson from that first run. Phillip had a lot of speed at the beginning of the run, but he began to fall back right before we had the stage yellow.
have to see what the strategy is going to be for our top two, because we don't know what kind of adjustments might have been made when they came down pit road under that stage caution. But we do know that in the first half of this race, or the first stage of this race, Nathan Jurgensen, he was strong in the early going, but started to lose a couple of spots towards the end of the run. Jonathan Delaney, on the other hand, he kept moving forward. And so we'll see if the 6 truck on your screen, 12 truck on your running order here, if he's going to be able to just kind of play the patient game and wait for the tires to wear down again for race leader Nathan Jurgensen.
I think that's exactly what Delaney is doing here. Delaney's not necessarily Delaney's not worried about points at all. He just wants to go out there and get the victory, Jonathan Delaney. And when Jurgensen's made the move to the inside of him just a few laps ago, he just completely moved out of the way and let him have the spot, and he followed in right back behind him. I think he's just playing it patient right now and waiting for the tires to fall off and for his tires really to start to feel good, and he'll drive past Jurgensen and possibly drive away. We'll have to see what happens, though, if we get to that point in the run.
Only driver inside the top 5 right now that's running full time is that 3rd place driver, Tanner Love. And here tonight, obviously, would love to be able to pick up the first victory on the season for him, but also trying to get as many points as possible, because he's within striking distance of passing TJ Crampton for 7th and Jamie Knopf for 6th in points. Just continue to pad his cushion back to that cutoff line. As a matter of fact, as I'm looking at it right now, if Tanner Love can finish inside the podium here tonight, he would only have to show up for one of the 2 upcoming races, either Michigan or Lucas Oil, and he'd be locked in on points into the playoffs.
That would be great for Tanner Love. Tanner Love, not one of those drivers that necessarily shows up every single week, so he might already be planning on only showing up to one of those 2 events. So if that would be the case, that would be a perfect scenario for Tanner Love. That way he can get into the playoffs and possibly compete for a championship.
Field is super strung out right now. All single file back to the 11th place Matt Knight. You see them all in the same straightaway. 8th in this line is our stage 1 winner, Boyd Hogan. Going on with this 96, is he just playing the waiting game as well, or is the dominant truck he had out in clean air suddenly feeling the effects of aero tightness and not quite to his liking as it was in the early going?
I think it could possibly be a little bit of mixture of both. I feel like he's probably finding it a little more difficult to handle that number 96 machine back there. And also, it's a very long race, and he's a smart race car driver, knows how to take care of his tires. And he probably was paying attention to seeing some of those drivers lose a little bit of their gap, like just fall a little farther back to that number 96 underneath that last run. Just wants to take care of those tires here.
Let's also remember that he was one of a dozen drivers that came down pit road under the last caution to top off the fuel tank, so he might be also trying to save a little bit of fuel back there in the slipstream of Braxton Deweese and see if he can stretch it a little bit further than some of these other guys, if indeed they cannot make it the rest of the way on fuel.
I'm real interested to see what the strategy is there. If they're able to make it the rest of the way on this tank of fuel, it would be a great strategy, and it could possibly be a race winning strategy. You'll have to see when we get to that point. But here at the front, Delaney continues to just hang out behind Jurgensen. I keep on thinking he's going to dive to the inside because he has a big run, and he just kind of just mutters in right behind him. Tanner Love kind of doing the same thing as Delaney. They're all just kind of sticking in the draft and they're kind of making Jurgensen pull them around the racetrack.
Delaney had a little bit of a moment over there in turn 1. His left side's got down on the yellow line, and he pushed up the track just the least little bit. That's what lost him the ground at Jurgensen and brought Tanner Love to his back bumper. Now he's getting that momentum back from the tunnel turn down here to turn 3 and down the front straightaway. We'll see if he gets a big run, a big tow here with the draft down the front stretch. If he does he stay in line behind the 31ers as he step out? There's the answer right there. Stays tucked in behind Nathan Jurgensen. I think you're absolutely right. What he's doing right now is kind of what you do at a super speedway. You let that car out in front, cut the wind for you, create the draft, allow you to save fuel, while at the same time they're using up a lot more fuel, and that would draw the 31 to pit road a lot sooner than the guys behind him.
And Delaney's just taking it really easy in the corners behind Jurgensen, but you're seeing it on the straightaway. He just drafts right up every time. He's keeping within that 2 to 3 tenth gap. So he's able to just draft right back up very easily, especially with Tanner Love right on his bumper. It just gives him a little extra boost. And Hutchison, he's joined these three up here as well.
So we know that with the aerodynamics, when you've got a truck in front of you, that's going to help you with fuel mileage. What is there about doing this type of a strategy that can help someone like Delaney, Love, and Hutchinson to be able to save tire?
It's going to be able to help them save tires just in the fact they can take it a little easier in the corner. They don't have to drive it as hard. They can let Jurgensen get out there a tenth or two in the corners and take it a little bit easier, and they'll draft right back up. Because if they're right now, what Delaney's doing in some of these straightaways, he's getting to the back bumper of the 31 and just kind of stalling in the back of these straightaways. If he times the corner right and does the corner perfect and takes it easy just enough, he'll draft right up and be right at the bumper of Jurgensen going into these corners. It's really all about just timing and what you want to do.
Slingshot was just engaged by Agno Phillip. He and Will Cooley, they were tandeming for a lap or two. And then Agno Phillip was able to step out, complete the pass around Will Cooley, and makes his way up inside the top 5. I don't know if this would necessarily come into play, but I would assume that these guys would be putting a little bit of grill tape on the nose of these trucks, allow them to get a little bit more downforce into the corner. If they're going to tandem like that down these straightaways, I mean, how anxious would you be to keep an eye on your water temps, make sure that they don't spike?
I'd be a little anxious at a track like Pocono because you would probably put a little more grill tape, or at least be willing to put a little more grill tape on your machine at a track like Pocono compared to Daytona or Talladega. But if you're right on somebody's bumper around this whole entire track, it's not going to hurt you quite as much as Daytona or Talladega. But if you have all that grill tape, it could definitely hurt you way worse depending on how much grill tape you have on that machine. So you have to be really aware of your temperatures on your gauge.
We're almost halfway home here tonight at Pocono. These drivers have at least one more pit stop waiting for them. The checkered flag might be hinging on that money stop. The question, though, is when will those pit stops be made? As Jurgensen drifts up there in turn 1. Delaney, who might have brushed the wall there on entry, he's going to be able to arc it off of turn 1, and it'll be a drag race down the straight here heading for the tunnel turn.
Couldn't really make it out the first time I saw that going into turn 1, but it looked like Delaney got to Jurgensen's bumper and kind of gave him a little bump draft right before getting in the corner, and it sent Jurgensen on a really bad line, and Delaney was able to complete the pass there. I don't know if Delaney was necessarily trying to make the pass or if the pass just kind of opened up for him right there, but either way, he is now the race leader. Jurgensen now trying to hold on to the second spot, as here comes Hutchison and Love, and Phillip has entered the conversation as well, and Boyd Hogan, he is on the way as well in that 96. That red number 96 continues to get bigger in these drivers' mirrors.
And he's bringing Will Cooley, so might be able to throw a blanket over our entire top 7 in just a moment. Side by side for second, Hutchinson on the bottom, Jurgensen up top. Side by side behind them for fourth, Phillip on the top and Tanner Love on the bottom. Give the spot to Phillip down the straight.
Phillip able to move up to fourth, and this is the complete opposite of what Phillip did on that last run. That last run, he went really hard at the beginning portion of the run and fell off very quickly. In this run, he's taken it fairly easily at the beginning portion of the run. Now here he is, all of a sudden pulled up here to the front portion of the field, and he's making passes on the high side.
Ralph Hutchinson sent it into turn 3. Almost drifted up into Agno Phillip. You see him get a little loose there on corner exit. That's going to stifle his momentum down the straight. Look at him tandeming on the top side. Phillip, Love, and Hogan. 3-truck train.
And Delaney's loving this. Delaney's trying to check out on this group with all of them battling back here. He's pulled out to almost a 7/10 advantage as Hutchison slides up there, almost getting into the door. And Love almost gets into the wall, almost makes contact with his teammate Hogan off the corner.
I think Tanner Love was going to try and make the same move around the top side of Hutchinson that Agno Phillip was, but when that 51 started drifting up, Tanner Love felt he had to give more room and almost got the outside wall for his troubles. He's now dropped back to the 6th position, now battling with Will Cooley. So Tanner Love in the span of about 2 or 3 laps, losing 3 positions from third now back to sixth.
Love's falling back a little bit. Has to try to hang on to that draft. It'll maybe help him get back up there. Once he loses that draft, it's gonna be pretty difficult to get back up there. We'll have to see what happens. And now that these drivers are lined back up, we'll have to see if they are able to catch back up to Delaney in the number 12 machine. If the draft's able to make that much of a difference, it should make a little difference on these straightaways. But if you have multiple drivers running different lines and have different breaking points in the corner, that can really just even out the time.
Now Boyd Hogan led every single lap in the first stage, went on to get the stage victory. For those that are wondering why he's back here, currently in the 5th position, he overshot his pit box when they came down for that stage yellow. Since then, he's been off sequence with everybody else, has been topping off the fuel tank under both the first and second caution. But with that being said, that pit road miscue, that was under pacing. We know that these drivers are more than likely going to have to make a pit stop under green flag conditions. For Boyd Hogan and pretty much for everybody else in the field here as well, you've got that asphalt to concrete transition from pit road to the pit box. It's going to be up to the driver as much as the pit crew as far as execution on pit road here under green flag conditions, because much like a super speedway, you could throw away a win, let alone a good top 5 finish, if you end up making a mistake like we saw Boyd Hogan make.
One thing also just to keep in mind if we end up doing green flag pit stops, if you end up pitting, like you have to be really careful on the inside coming out of turn 3 because it's very loose down there, especially if you get heavy off of the gas and just let off the gas. You can easily just whip it around on the inside of the exit of turn 3. So that's another thing to watch out for, is drivers possibly self-spinning out of that corner trying to come down pit road.
Top of the screen there, I couldn't tell if Will Cooley did get the wall out of 3, but he was almost on a first name basis with it. It was very close off that final corner as he got wicked loose off of turn 3. Pass has now been made for 4th. Oh! Boyd Hogan made the pass on Hutchinson. Hutchinson looked to cross him over and almost got blocked down there to the dotted yellow line.
Very close call between Hutchinson and Hogan. Hogan will ultimately win the battle for now. He's going to try to pull away from the number 51 machine. I did look back at Cooley. Cooley was able to barely keep it off the wall, got completely sideways off turn 3, able to save it, keep it off the wall, no harm, no foul.
So if we are looking at these drivers, specifically the drivers that did not come down pit road under the second caution, if we're looking at them to potentially split the remainder of the race with that green flag pit stop, we can expect to see them down pit road somewhere in the next 10 laps. We went back green in the 60 some odd laps to go mark, and we have gone about 23 laps into this run. So we'll see if drivers elect to come down at that 30 lap mark, or if they'll try and stretch it as far as the fuel tank can possibly go. I don't know if there would be an advantage of stretching it further, just based on the fact that, whoa, my goodness, Delaney, race leader there with a big slide off of 2, but you're going to have to take on that final set of tires anyway, and it takes the same amount of time to change tires as it would to be fill the fuel tank up. Easy for me to say. So I don't know if having that extra amount of time, that shorter amount of time of fueling the truck up, if that would give you any advantage.
I don't think that's necessarily the advantage in this case. I think these drivers want to stay out as long as possible. That way they have the freshest tires at the end of this race for 2 different scenarios. The first scenario, most of the time I've commentated races and seen these races, the drivers that usually come out at the end of the run tend to have a lot more speed at the end of the run and end up having the bigger advantage ultimately. And you also mentioned earlier that these drivers only have 1 set of tires. Well, drivers tend to get more aggressive at the end of these races. If one of these drivers takes tires with 20 laps to go and the others take tires with 30 laps to go and a caution comes out, they're all going to be ganged back together, and those drivers with the 10-lap fresher tires are going to fly past the rest of them.
Trying to remember what racetrack it was, and I believe it might have been Bristol, We're back to the point you're talking about of having those fresher tires closer to the end of the race. It was Agno Phillip, I think, was one of the last that came down pit road during a green flag cycle, and he almost was able to race his way up to the race win, and finishing in the second position. So yeah, we'll see if anybody's going to play the long con and see if they can spend a shorter amount of laps on the fresher tires. Again, we don't really know what the fuel window is for these drivers, just how far they can go on what they've got in the tank, based on the fact that we end up having that stage caution come out 20 laps into this race, and we of course had that other spin by Chuck Waldrop just after the restart. So this is the longest green flag run we have been on to this point. It'll be interesting to see just exactly how far each driver is going to elect to stretch it here before making that final pit stop of the day, as Boyd Hogan continues to march forward. He got by Agno Phillip for fourth. He is now on the hunt of Nathan Jurgensen going into turn one.
Boyd Hogan's consistently putting down the fastest laps on the racetrack. That last time by, he was 2/10 quicker than our race leader, Jonathan Delaney. So I think he was taking it really easy at the beginning portion of that run and just saving his tires for the end part of the run. He is really flying at this point.
On board here with Boyd Hogan. Looked like he had a run on Jurgensen, elected not to take it this time. He'll look to set up Jurgensen down here, potentially into turn three. There's a second and a half from Delaney back to this battle for the runner-up spot. So if you're Delaney, are you backing your pace off a little bit here, or are you gunning it for all it's worth, knowing that Boyd Hogan, as soon as he gets clear, he's got a slightly faster truck than you do?
I'm Delaney. I at least try to cool off my tires at the moment. Try to cool him off at least a little bit if he's not already, because he might already be doing that. That might be one of the reasons why that the 96 is putting down these faster laps than him, because he's racing Jurgensen right now. Now Hogan's in the second spot, so now he's mainly racing Hogan. Does he pick up his pace a little bit, or does he continue to run the pace that he's at? Because on that first run, Jonathan Delaney was the fastest driver by far on the long run, and he had to pass a bunch of cars. This time he hasn't really had to pass anybody. He had a battle for the lead momentarily, but for that, other than that, he's been leading this whole run.
Boyd Hogan looking for his 7th win on the season. He's got a second and a half to make up on Jonathan Delaney as he starts to pull away from Nathan Jurgensen. Jurgensen for a moment looked like he was going to have a battle from Agno Phillip, but Phillip has since fallen back into the clutches of Ralph Hutchinson. So you've still got them lined up pretty much nose to tail from second back to sixth, where we find Tanner Love.
And back in seventh, looks like we have Will Cooley around 2 seconds back, and then update you on the other drivers that have kind of fallen way back of this group. You have Braxton Deweese around 9 seconds back, a second back of him. You have Matt Knight in the 33. You have Ryan Strunk in the 77, around 2.5 seconds back of him. And Malgani back there as well. And Waldrop's been way off the pace ever since his incident. Unfortunate for the number 7 machine.
I'll tell you something I've been noticing here. Now almost 30 laps into the run for most drivers, a couple of them 25 laps into their run, but they are testing the limits of just how wide they can swing off the corner. A couple of times in this group of 4, I've seen drivers almost brush the wall exiting turn 1 and the tunnel turn, so definitely those tires are wearing away. That rear grip on exit is starting to leave these drivers, and they're having to compensate for it while still trying to battle side by side.
It's a very dangerous game to play. I've seen it happen at Pocono more often than not, where drivers get up into the wall in front of a group of other drivers that are just coming so close to the wall off the exit of the corner. And if, for example, Phillip gets in the wall, Jurgensen could easily get in the back of him, then Hutchison gets in the back of him, Love gets in the back of him, and that's just a huge incident off the corner.
Gap when Boyd Hogan completed the pass on Nathan Jurgensen for second was about 1.5 seconds. Since then, it's been cut down to 1.3 seconds. That time by, Boyd Hogan gained about 5/100ths. He was gaining about 8 to 9/100ths. So with that battle we saw Boyd Hogan have with Agnew Phillip, and then eventually with Nathan Jurgensen, you have to wonder just how much tire was used up, how much speed was lost, because he's not exactly reeling in Delaney as quickly as one would think, especially with the pace he was setting when he was running back in third and fourth based off the lap time. So does that mean that the draft down the straightaways might have been playing into those lap times as well?
Think that is a possibility, but it could also be possible that Hogan sees himself pulling away from the field. He sees that Delaney's pulling away from the field. He could have in his mind that it's a two-man race between himself and Delaney and might be trying to cool off the tires just a little bit and might try to make another run at him.
Little cat and mouse going on right now between six-time winner Boyd Hogan and Jonathan Delaney, who's looking for his first victory on the season. We are now entered into that window I was talking about where drivers, if they were looking to split this last run in half, they would start to be making preparations about now to come down pit lane.
We're going to see some drivers decide to make that move down pit lane just to compare the lap times. Boyd Hogan, for example.
Oh, sorry to cut you off. Big hit there. Ralph Hutchinson into the outside wall off of turn one. Pancake the right side, lost the position to Tanner Love, but able to keep going. Looks like he's coming to pit road actually now.
Very heavy hit for the number 51 of Hutchison. You hate to see it. He had such a good run going. He's going to have to make this unscheduled pit stop.
Oh, I think he's done.
Oh, he's going to pull over. He's going to hit the cone. His teammate Cooley comes down pit road as well to change tires, it looks like.
Tough break there for Ralph Hutchinson. Part-time driver and was running really well here today. Up inside the top five pretty much the entirety of this race. Oh, Will Cooley, couple inches over in his pit stall. So a little bit of a mistake there for the driver of the 00. Ryan Strunk also on pit road this lap. Malugani now pulls into the attention of his crew. So 3 drivers making regularly scheduled stops here, splitting this final stage directly down the middle.
And don't look now, but Delaney is falling off hard at the very end of this run. It looks like that last lap, Hogan caught up 3/10. This lap, it looks like Hogan caught up 2/10. He's cut down that lead to 0.8 of a second all of a sudden.
Now you have to wonder if you're Jonathan Delaney. A couple of drivers have come down pit road. You maybe consider coming down pit road this time, kind of catch the 96 off guard and short pit him. Obviously, Boyd Hogan right now would be able, if he so chose, to try and leapfrog the 12, because by time Boyd Hogan makes the indication to pit lane, Delaney would be already past pit road entrance.
I feel like if you're Delaney, you kind of want to short pit, but if you short pit, that's exactly what Hogan wants him to do. That's why Hogan took that extra bit of fuel and topped off, because he wants to stay out as long as possible and have those fresh tires at the end of the run. And here comes Delaney. Delaney is now coming down pit road in the number 12 machine.
Got to get that thing back down to 55 miles per hour is just as important getting on and off of pit road as it is getting into your pit stall. We'll follow this 12 truck down to his stall, make sure that there's no mistakes. Extended stay for the 86 of Richard Malugani, who I believe is now being pushed back behind the wall, and a pit road miscue for Jonathan Delaney. Completely overshot his box, might have been a little too far left as well, and had to readjust his truck in the stall.
Oh no, that's the worst mistake you can make right there, because that's more than just backing up. You got to back up and readjust. That cost him a lot of time, and that might cost him the victory here tonight, Seth.
Jonathan Delaney, up until tonight, his best finish at Richmond of P4, and was looking like one of the drivers that could be in victory lane by the end of the evening. But that pit road mistake, as you said, that could be a race win killer. As now Nathan Jurgensen, Tanner Love from third and fourth, they're coming down pit lane here with 28 laps to go.
Now we wait to see when the 96 and the 94 come down pit road, that being Hogan and Phillip still out there on the racetrack. When do they decide to come down pit road for that final pit stop of the race to take those 4 fresh Goodyears?
Richard Malugani, as I mentioned, back in the garage area now. It looked like when we were following Jonathan Delaney down pit lane, like he had quite a bit of damage. Might have knocked the wall down a time or two. Also noticed Ryan Strunk in the 77. Long stop for him. He's got a lot of right side damage too. So we've seen a couple of drivers up towards the front that were nearly hitting the wall. A couple of drivers back in the latter half of the field look like they gave the wall a pretty good licking as Boyd Hogan gives up the lead. He's going to come down pit road for his final stop of the day, turns the lead over to Agnew Phillip. Let's follow the 96, see if he's able to execute his pit stop correctly this time. We documented he had the four-wheel slide when we had the pit stops after stage one.
Let's see if Hogan's able to have a good pit stop this time around. And he's able to get into his box securely this time. We're going to get those 4 fresh Goodyears. How quick is he able to get outside of his box? I'm looking here at the times. Delaney was on pit road for a total of 46 seconds. Because of that backup, it cost him a lot of time. And Hogan able to be down pit road only 6 seconds shorter than Delaney. So that's huge right there. Let's see where he comes out on the track at.
He is going to get bypassed by the 00 of Will Cooley, who was one of the first ones on pit road. Here comes Agnew Phillip from the race lead. He's going to come down pit lane. So now it looks like it's going to be Cooley versus Hogan versus Phillip potentially of who's going to cycle out to the race lead with 25 laps remaining.
And the 96 of Hogan didn't quite have his speed up yet, and Jurgensen was able to get past him. Delaney not too far behind. Delaney around a second back of these two drivers. Will Cooley currently the race leader out of the drivers that have already made their pit stops. Phillip currently on pit road.
So this right now, you're looking at the potential battle for second, maybe third, depending on when Agnew Phillip comes out and where he re-emerges with the rest of the field. He's actually now going to fall outside of the podium as he's just now leaving pit lane. There you saw him, and he's going to drop back at least to the 6th position, it looks like, but he will have the fresher tires here for the final 25 laps. Will Cooley going to cycle out to the race lead, about a second and a half back to this battle between Nathan Jurgensen and Boyd Hogan. Jonathan Delaney, he's going to be about 2.5 seconds behind the leaders. He's going to be slotted out in the 4th spot.
And Delaney on 2-lap older tires than the 96 of Hogan, but Cooley on 4-lap older tires. Cooley with the oldest tires up here. Jurgensen and Hogan should be able to drive down Cooley in the next few laps, but we'll have to see. And right now, Delaney's best friend is Nathan Jurgensen and Will Cooley to get him back into this race.
Looking back from Jurgensen to Boyd Hogan. Jonathan Delaney spent a good portion of this final stage out in front, trying to manage his gap. Now he has to go on the offensive once again, much like we saw him in the first stage of this race, as he might have a challenge from Tanner Love for the 4th position. One thing I observed for a lot of these drivers before they were coming down pit road was a lot of them were really slipping and sliding around. Even Agnew Phillip, who stayed out the longest of anybody, he had a bit of a 4-wheel slide off of turn 2. Remember, we split this second stage in half, which means they're going to have that same slippy slidey sensation in the closing stages of this race. I'm not necessarily certain I'll want my truck sliding around on me when I'm trying to come around and get a checkered flag.
I wouldn't want that either. The two drivers that have just seemed to be really strong on these long runs are Boyd Hogan and that number 12 of Delaney. So I think they're hoping that this race goes green the remainder of the way and they don't have any pauses, no chances for these drivers to cool down their tires. It seems like they have the advantage in that sort of situation.
See Will Cooley pulling low there on the straight. He's not having a problem. What he's doing right there is trying to break the draft of the trucks behind him. There you see it again, trying to not allow Nathan Jurgensen to be able to get any kind of slipstream, any kind of a run on him down these long straightaways, but I don't think that draft's even going to play a part into it. I think just those fresher tires on the 31 is why he was able to close up so much ground to turn 3. Let's see if he's going to make the move here on Will Cooley down the straight. Cooley tries to block him, but not going to be able to do it. The speed, the grip in the tires is on the side of Nathan Jurgensen, who should take this race lead by the time we exit turn 1.
Yeah, Will Cooley's tires are gone compared to these drivers. There's no point in trying to break the draft because lap before, Jurgensen caught up to Cooley by almost a full second in one lap. So these drivers are going a lot faster than Cooley. Just a couple of laps difference on pit stops really makes a difference.
Will Cooley, of course, coming off that Road Warrior Challenge victory, those 3 road course races in which he ended up winning one of them at Road America. The other 2 won by the driver that just bypassed him for second place, Boyd Hogan. That, of course, being Sonoma and Mid-Ohio. And Boyd Hogan, he's only about 2.5 truck lengths off the back of Nathan Jurgensen. We saw Hogan be able to pass Jurgensen just before that green flag pit stop cycle began, so we know that if he gets up there to the 31, he's got a faster truck. It's a question of when does he make the move. Looks like it's going to be right now. He shows the nose into turn 1.
I was literally about to say, I think he's just going to buy his time behind this 31 machine. He's going to fall back behind him for now, but I think he's going to I was thinking he was going to just try to buy his time behind this 31 machine, just kind of do the same thing he did on that last run and just buy his time at the beginning of the run and then just fly by. And at this point, he only has one truck to pass. So he would have to get past Jurgensen. At that point, he can just drive away because he has the freshest tires out of this group as well.
I feel like we just took the scenario back on lap 6 and fast forwarded to now because, again, much like we had in the beginning stages of this race, we've got our top 6 all separated by less than a second and a half. Jurgensen, Hogan, Tanner Love, Will Cooley, Jonathan Delaney, and Agno Phillip. Any one of these 6 drivers right now with 20 laps to go have a shot of winning this thing. It's all going to come down, though, to who has the freshest tires at the end.
And that's what it's ultimately going to come down to. And it's quite impressive that all these drivers were able to stay together after pit stops. Quite a very difficult pit road to get on and maneuver. And it's a really long pit road. So it's real impressive that these drivers are this close together. And you were mentioning how those drivers behind Hogan seemed to actually might be getting a little bit closer, especially Tanner Love in that 28. That might be one of the reasons why Hogan is not quite making a move at the moment, because he knows if he doesn't get past Jurgensen in 1 or 2 corners, that group of drivers behind him is most likely going to catch him because you're going to go a lot slower neck and neck than you are by yourself.
Tanner Love, last time by, fastest truck on the track, had the benefit of the draft of the 3 trucks behind him and also was in the draft of Boyd Hogan up ahead. This time by, again, fastest truck on the racetrack, same scenario. While the drivers around him are running about 55 threes, he's running 55 ones. Now that's obviously going to help him to be able to get up here for a battle, maybe a 3-way battle for the race lead, but doesn't have to really worry about backing it down for fuel because we know that these drivers can make it the rest of the way. The pit crews might as well start packing up the pit boxes because the only other reason why these drivers would come down pit road from now to the checkered flag would be either to repair crash damage or maybe if we got a late race caution to come down and top off the fuel tank if you don't have real good track position, because these drivers, when they came down pit road that last time, they put on their final set of Goodyears. There's no more Goodyear tires waiting for them.
And the only reason you'd need to be on pit road is to make some sort of change. And here comes the 96 of Hogan. He's going to go to the inside of Jurgensen, and Jurgensen's way off the line. He's going to have a slow entry to the corner. That's going to cost him a lot of time. And Hogan has the race lead once again. Jurgensen now back in the 2nd spot.
Well, in the early portions of this race, it was Boyd Hogan versus Tanner Love. Then it turned into Boyd Hogan versus Jonathan Delaney. Now it is Boyd Hogan versus Nathan Jurgensen, but I wouldn't rest on that 94 of Agno Phillip. Remember, he's got the freshest tires of anybody, the last one to pit road, and he is 4th in this line right now. He might have something for this 96 before all is said and done. He's only about 0.7 of a second off the back bumper.
Let's keep in mind, though, right in between himself and the 96 of Hogan, he has to get past that 28 of Tanner Love. And Tanner Love seems to be a little quicker than even his teammate Boyd Hogan at the moment. So Love is not just going to move over for Phillip. Phillip's going to have to make a move and get past that 28.
And every lap that Agno Phillip runs in the draft of the 28 and the 31, it's going to get his truck a little bit tighter, slide the nose on corner exit, wear down those front tires, and take away that grip that he might need to be able to get up there and battle Boyd Hogan for the race lead. It'll be side by side for the third position here, heading down into turn number 3. Phillip trying to complete the pass as Matt Knight in the 33. This appears to be an unscheduled pit stop for him. Well, maybe not. They are servicing the car, and they are actually putting tires on.
Maybe he had
So I'm
a
not certain.
set of tires
Maybe he
left.
had a set left. Yeah.
Huh. It'd be a very interesting strategy, and I'll have to see how that's able to work out for Matt Knight in the 33. He is going to go a lap down, but if he gets a caution, he will get the lucky dog, and he'll have by far the freshest tires on the racetrack. So that could possibly be a race-winning move if we're able to get a caution.
Well, looks like it might be a little bit more sinister than that. Very lengthy stay now, over a minute in length for Matt Knight. So he might have taken on a set of tires, but he might have also been down there to repair some damage. It looked like he had a little bit of a bowing on the rear splitter there, so I don't know if maybe he made some contact with the right rear into the outside wall, but the worst he can finish here tonight is the 9th position, as we had 14 drivers take the green, 5 of them in the garage area. Ryan Strunk rather, Richard Malugani, Ralph Hutchinson, Christopher Hill, and Christopher Pfeffer all back behind the wall in the infield. They'll finish 10th through 14th here tonight. We've got 8 trucks on the lead lap, and give a shout out to Chuck Waldrop there in that 7 truck. We saw him be the only truck that brought out a caution for cause. That second caution of the day has been dealing with that front end damage pretty much the entirety of the second half of this race, but with the drivers out and him soldiering on, he is currently in the 8th position, so he's going to still get some pretty decent points as he looks to continue to pad the cushion between himself and that playoff cut line.
The battle might be officially on. Phillip able to get past Jurgensen. Jurgensen looked like he saw that Phillip was faster and just kind of gave up the spot to Phillip. Phillip now in the 2nd position. Is he able to drive down Hogan in the amount of time we have left? That last time by, Hogan was around 2/10 quicker, but Phillip did have to make the pass on the number 31.
The difference in tires is only 1 lap. We'll have to see if just that 1 extra lap of Goodyear rubber for Agnew Phillip, that's going to be enough for him to get up here to Boyd Hogan. He's got 15 laps to work with, but he's got to cut down about 1.3 seconds between himself and the 96 as Jurgensen continues to free fall. Tanner Love going to move on by him for the final spot in the podium, and here comes Jonathan Delaney.
94 of Phillip's going to have to cut down this lead around a 10th a lap. He's going to have to start working at it. Going to have to check the times at the line and see how much he's able to cut down. Right now, looks like he's around 1.3 seconds back. Going to check the times. It looks like Hogan with the 55.7 flat and Phillip around a 10th and a half slower that last time by. So he needs to pick up his pace if he wants any chance of winning this race.
Will Cooley, 00 on pit road.
Cooley on pit road once again in this double zero machine. Just hasn't been a very easy day for this 00, unfortunately, and he's going to come down pit road and looks like he has another set of tires as well on this 00 machine.
So the attention of his crew, he should be able, I believe, to return to the racetrack still on the lead lap. And as soon as we say that, looks like he just got pushed back behind the wall as well.
The 00 is still there on pit lane. It looks like, yeah, he looks like his day could possibly be done. That 00 machine here early.
Cooley, who picked up the victory at Road America about 3 weeks ago. As everybody continues to chase Boyd Hogan, that awfully wide there off of turn 1, but at the same time, he is either gaining or maintaining his gap back to Agnew Phillip. Been about 1.4 seconds for the last 2 laps or so. So I don't know if it's a case of Boyd Hogan pushing the issue here or just trying to kind of match the lap times of Agnew Phillip. For Agnew Phillip, For every lap that takes away, that's one more lap he doesn't have to work with to be able to reel in the 96. So he has to be in go mode now. He can't save tires. He can't afford to lose that time, lose those laps.
I'm just really thinking that these tires have really evened out for Agnew Phillip. I think both these drivers are going 110% at the moment for this victory, and Phillip just can't close the gap at the moment. He was closing it, or at least trying to close it for a few laps there, getting past his competitors, but at this point, he's really stuck at that 1.4-second gap. Hogan is in a rhythm. He needs Hogan to make some sort of mistake and knock him out of that rhythm, and Phillip might be able to get up there.
Last time by, Boyd Hogan ran a 55.937. Agnew Phillip ran a 9.11, so he gained 2 100s, but that's not going to cut it. With only 12 laps left to go, you've got to cut that lead down by about a tenth, maybe a 1.1 tenths per lap if you're going to have a shot at Boyd Hogan on the final lap of this race.
This time by, once again, Phillip able to cut down that lead by around 200ths, but it's not going to be nearly enough if he wants to win this race. At this point, he's either hoping on a caution or Hogan to make some sort of mistake, or Phillip maybe try to find some more grip on the racetrack, find a different racing line, try to figure something out.
Outside of pit road, Boyd Hogan has not made a mistake today. Out on the racetrack, he has been flawless. We even saw him after the pit road miscue do a masterful job of working his way back up through the field and up to the front. So we know that he is patient, we know that he's smart, and we know that he's got a truck that he can pretty much put anywhere to make his way up to the front no matter what racetrack it is. And he's proved it again here today. That's why he's a 6-time winner coming into tonight, looking to head into Michigan in 2 weeks' time as a 7-time winner. And you know, we've talked a lot here today about the draft and fuel strategy. We're going to be talking a lot about that, I feel, once we get to the Irish Hills as well. Michigan might be one of those kind of wild card racetracks because the public's kind of split on what to call it. Some call it a speedway, some call it a super speedway. So we might end up seeing somebody that we might not necessarily expect go into victory lane in that one.
Michigan, a very different racetrack, especially depending on what type of cars you decide to bring to Michigan. These trucks, especially, you mentioned super speedway. In these trucks at Michigan, it tends to feel a little more like a super speedway than most tracks. But once those tires begin to fall off at Michigan, it really changes the whole track and changes your whole setup, and you really have to try to figure out your setup for that point in the race.
This is going to be the longest track that these drivers will be at for the season. The 2-mile Michigan will then be the next highest track for the remainder of the season, and then we go to a bunch of 1.5 and short tracks for the playoffs. Of course, we finish off the regular season at Lucas Oil Raceway Park. Tell you what, we may have about 2 or 3 drivers in playoff scenarios going into that one, and what an idea to have the regular season finale take place at a track where everybody's going to be up each other's gearboxes.
Lucas Oil Raceway, a very different sort of racetrack. It's a short track for sure, races like a short track, but the high line is the dominant place. It's a very different racetrack, and I expect if we get a decent field that there could be a lot of destroyed racetracks out there.
We're going to keep an eye on this battle for the 3rd position. Tanner Love, Nathan Jurgensen, Jonathan Delaney, those 3 separated by just 0.3 of a second. If we end up seeing the battle for the lead close up, we'll certainly jump up to that here with 8 laps to go, but it still maintains about 1.4 seconds from Boyd Hogan back to Agnew Phillip. I think that basically says right there, the fresh tire advantage for Agnew Phillip, it's gone away. They basically evened out now.
Yeah, they've pretty much evened out. Phillip making those moves to get past these other drivers really evened out those tires. Hogan was able to hang out up front, not really have to deal with any of these other drivers. Oh, a great move from Jurgensen. He's going to slide up right in front of Love. Love gets sideways off the corner, almost gets into the wall, and Delaney's now going to dive to the inside. This is a good battle here for around the 3rd spot with only a few laps to go.
Jonathan Delaney with that pass. Well, not quite completed off of turn 3. trying to get that 4th spot, but Tanner Love battles back on the outside line. He gets that draft off the back of the 31 as well to aid him, almost clearing the 12 of Jonathan Delaney down here into turn 1, but not quite going to be able to do it. Delaney, with the shorter way around the racetrack into the first corner, will complete the slide job up across the nose of Tanner Love and move himself into P4. I thought maybe Tanner Love would get the run for the crossover, and indeed he does, as we got a slower truck there. That's Chuck Waldrop down the straight, staying out of the way of the race leaders on the lead lap.
Love able to get the run out of the corner, and he pulls a really tight slide on Delaney there. Almost contact, and Delaney gets sideways off the corner. He's going to go into 3 on the inside.
Boy, this is fun to watch here with 7 laps to go. Delaney versus Love for a spot inside the top 5, P4. Slide job once again there for Delaney out of turn 3. Tanner Love, big run, comes back. Will he look to the inside into turn 1? Nope, this time he's just going to stay in line, glued to the back bumper of Delaney heading down to the first corner.
Jurgensen has to be loving this. He's able to pull away from these guys so far because they just keep on going back and forth. Love is putting that pressure still on Delaney. Is he able to make a move back on the number 12 machine?
Half a truck length, now a full truck length from Delaney back to Love. It's like Tanner Love just can't seem to hook the bottom like Delaney can. Oh, wow, and there you go. Overdrove it out of turn 2. Hard into the outside wall for the 28. And now he's going to have to ride out the final 6 laps of this race with damage on the right front. See if he has to come to pit road here or not. Nope, he's just going to try and ride it out. He's got, 17 and a half seconds back to Braxton Deweese for next position. So just trying to hang on to that final top 5 spot, but might have just overstepped it a little too much there off of turn 2. And he's got damage as a result.
Love just pushing the car a little too hard there out of turn 2 and ended up getting up into the wall. Up here at the front, just to give you an update, Philip has been cutting this gap just a little bit. A few laps ago, it was 1.5 seconds. He's cut it down to 1.2. So he's catching up around a little less than a 10th lap, but that still won't be enough to make this comeback. He needs to catch up either a lot quicker or hopes that Hogan makes some sort of mistake here in the late goings.
I'm also looking here, a driver we haven't talked much about tonight, back in the 6th position, Braxton Deweese. He is within striking distance here down the home stretch of this regular season of maybe taking 2nd in the point standings from Christopher Hill. Christopher Hill back in the garage area, finishing the day out in 13th place. Right now, he would be in line for, I believe it's 25 finishing points. Braxton Deweese in the 6th position would be in line for 31 finishing points. So he'd gain about 6 or 7 points, not including what the stage points payout was here when we had that completion of stage 20 yellow. But he came into this race, did Braxton Deweese, only 34 points behind Christopher Hill. With Hill's DNF here tonight, if Braxton Deweese can finish where he is, it could be a heck of a battle between those two for the runner-up spot in the overall point standings heading into the playoffs in about a month's time.
With Deweese, just keep on pushing forward no matter what happens in his races and just keeping consistent with the top 10, top 5 runs from the number 8 machine. He's a couple months ago, maybe a month or 2 ago, he was outside of the playoffs looking to get in, and now he has a great opportunity to get at least 2nd in the points here before we get to the playoffs. That would be really a big confidence boost for that number 8 team.
I think it was, 8 or 9 races into the regular season. He only had 1 top 5 to his credit. Since then, though, has picked up 6 more top 5s. He has 11 top 10s coming to this race. Really found some good consistency, especially around when we went to that road course stint. As don't look now, the gap has closed. It's not by much, but it is closer than what it was when we last looked. 1.1 seconds from Hogan back to Phillip. The only problem is, though, coming to the start-finish line, there's only 5 miles left in this race.
2 laps remaining here at Pocono Raceway. Do we get a caution possibly on this lap and create a green-white checkered? I see a lot of separation out there, so it seems unlikely unless we get some sort of self-spin. Hogan looking to get that checkered flag once again this season. If he's able to run some mistake-free laps here,
I think
he
he
will go
just
to
got the
victory
wall
lane.
there off the turn one.
Yeah, that's
I think
why
I
I
saw
kind
some.
of changed my voice a little bit. I wasn't sure if he caught the wall. It was awfully close. I
I
think he
think I
might
saw
have
some
barely
sparks
touched
off
it.
that right rear.
He lost around a tenth there, so he might have gotten the wall. He gets sideways
Oh
too.
boy.
This isn't over yet, folks.
Remember, as I mentioned, when these guys came to pit road at the end of that 25 lap stint, they were slipping and sliding around. We're now 25 laps into this run, and these trucks are not behaving themselves. So we got 2.5 miles left to go. The gap is about 9.5 tenths of a second from Hogan back to Phillip. Can Hogan make it back to the start finish line?
Yeah, if Hogan gets in the wall a little harder than that this time through one, Phillip will be right there on his bumper. Hogan has to run a clean lap. It doesn't need to be a perfect lap. He just has to make sure he keeps that chuck off the wall.
Boy, that got close there again. I couldn't tell if I was just seeing some of the wall there where it looked like there was sparks or if those indeed were sparks, but he's just going razor's edge here, letting that truck ride out as wide as it can. Let's see what happens here off the tunnel turn. Nice exit for both drivers. Now it comes down here to this tricky six-bank turn, turn three.
Here comes Boyd Hogan. It's been a dominant day from Boyd Hogan. Started on the pole, made a mistake on pit road earlier, but he's able to come back from it. And the number 96 of Boyd Hogan will win here at Pocono.
7th win on the season, second straight week that he goes to victory lane, coming off the heels of his victory back at Mid-Ohio. And Boyd Hogan, who dominated the first stage of this race, had to overcome a pit road miscue to get back up to the front once he got in clean air, never looked back, had to hold off a late charging Agnew Phillip. Had to work for this one here tonight, but successful once again. More playoff points going to go in the direction of the driver of the 96 as he continues to rack up those points for the postseason.
I was watching that last lap, and you have to feel for the number 12 of Jonathan Delaney. I ended up finishing 7 seconds behind Boyd Hogan. He lost 6 seconds on pit road, and in that last corner there, he hit the wall trying to get to Jurgensen. So if Delaney didn't make that mistake on pit road, it very well possibly could have been him in victory lane tonight. He ended up just missing the podium. So you have to feel for Delaney. But I said at the beginning of the show, Delaney is so close to getting a victory in this series. Unfortunately, it wasn't today, but maybe it'll be sometime in the future for that number 12 team.
I feel like the word we always say whenever somebody takes a checkered flag here in the Reaper Speed Lab Truck Series is execution. Whoever is able to master the execution, whether it's in strategy, whether it's in execution on pit road, whether it's in the moves you make on the racetrack, that's the driver that takes the checkered flag. And here tonight, very fortunate that his mistake was under caution, flawless under green flag conditions. That's why Boyd Hogan was the one that got to do the burnouts on the front straightaway, and he'll be heading to victory lane.
And Boyd Hogan just ran pretty much a perfect race, especially under green flag conditions. Those last few laps had both of us here in the booth a little bit worried about Hogan, but he was able to keep it straight and able to win this race by almost a second over Agno Phillip, who tried to put on a late charge. But another win from Hogan and the Legacy Esports team, and he's just building up more playoff points and more of a gap heading into the playoffs here in a couple of weeks.
Here's a look at the finishing results. Nathan Jurgensen, he was in a pretty good battle there with Jonathan Delaney for the last 2 or 3 laps. Saw him trying to cut the draft down the straights. He'll hang on to the final spot on the podium. Delaney brings it home in fourth. Tanner Love had that damage after getting in the wall in the closing stages, but he hangs on for fifth. And last truck to finish on the lead lap in sixth was Braxton Deweese. Chuck Waldrop, albeit a lap down with damage, he's going to bring the 7 truck home in P7. Will Cooley finished back behind the wall, as did Matt Knight and Ryan Strunk, who complete the top 10. These other drivers also finished back in the infield. Malugani, Hutchinson, Hill, and Pfeffer. Christopher Pfeffer only was able to complete about 1.5 laps before he came to pit road with some kind of mechanical problem. So we really never got to see what the 66 had tonight. And the 99 looked like he was fast, but he parked it early also. So it'll be interesting to see if these two drivers are able to bring speed next week to Michigan as they look to try to at least close up the gap a little bit and maintain their spots inside of the top five in the overall point standings with just a couple races left here in the regular season.
With a couple of races left, all the focus is going to be on those top few spots in the points. And then, of course, around 10th place in the point standings, Malagani able to go out there and snag some points tonight and able to cut down that gap to Navarro just a little bit more. Waldrop able to get at least some points and extend that gap to the 10th place. And Hogan extends his points lead with almost a perfect performance here tonight and is almost guaranteed the championship at this point as long as he shows up the next 2 weeks.
See if we can get some post race interviews with our top three finishers. And I believe we're ready to go down to victory lane and talk with tonight's 7-time winner now, Boyd Hogan. Hey, Boyd, it's Kyle and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Yes, sir.
Tell you what a drive from you here today. It certainly wasn't easy, though. It looked relatively easy in the first stage. You were able to keep them all behind you, pick up another stage victory, more playoff points. But then the pit road miscue there after the stage caution had to battle your way back up to the front. I mean, how difficult was it to maneuver your way back up there after spending the first half of this race out in clean air?
It was definitely different. I thought when it was time to go, it was definitely gonna be a little easier, I think, than what it was. But as the run goes on and progresses and tires wear off, it gets a little easier to pass. But really, the first, I don't know, 10 or 15 laps, you can't really do anything besides just sit and ride. Otherwise, you're just gonna kill your tires. So it kind of sucks. The first run there, it was yeah, you're pretty much just leading the draft. And then the second one could kind of hang in it, save a little tire, and then see what we had at the end. And honestly, it was pretty awesome there at the end. I had a lot of fun. So got to thank Chris Hill and everybody at Legacy Esports for all the help working on the sets all week, and Vicente Salas for a little bit of help that he put in today, and everybody over there.
You talked about those final laps being a lot of fun. We were kind of watching you guys during that run before you made the round of green flag pit stops. A lot of trucks slipping and sliding around, and we knew that that was a 25 lap run. You guys had 25 laps from then to the finish, so we were wondering if those trucks were going to be a little bit monstrous there in the final 2, 3 laps. We saw you have a couple of slides. That right rear brushed the wall a couple of times there off of turn one. I mean, just how nervous were you that you might throw this victory away? Because the 94, he was within striking distance.
Oh no, it was. I mean, Agnell had good speed all day for sure. Had the tires there at the end, and I think he had pretty good speed for sure. But no, I wasn't really too worried about throwing anything away or nothing like that. It was a little free, but no, I was really just trying to see how much quicker it could go there the last couple laps, and use a little too much rear tire trying to find out. That was all that was.
Back to back victories for you. Now 7 victories on the season. In 2 weeks' time, we go to maybe what might be the wild card race here down the home stretch of the regular season at Michigan. So, what's the strategy there in preparation for the Irish Hills?
Man, they I don't know if you can really have much of one going in there. It is a wild card, like you said, and it's a little different every time you go back. I mean, you never really know if you're gonna be packed up right up on each other the entire run, or if it's just gonna be kind of like Pocono was here, where you're just sitting riding around in draft for 15 or 20 until you break up a little bit. But we'll have to see when we get there for sure. It helps that we're in the summer months and whatnot, so tracks are a lot hotter, so you have a lot more slipping and sliding, kind of like you saw today, which obviously makes it a lot more fun for us to drive, and then probably more fun for you guys to call. Because I mean, hell, there were some moments there in the last couple laps where it probably looked a lot more wild and uh, and fun. So no, again, thank you to you guys for putting on the show you do. Thanks to Matt Knight for putting on the league, Jacob Shorba Racing Graphics, and everybody at Legacy Champion Power Equipment, Green Mountain Grills, Curb Records, GMS Fabrication, Curb Records. Everybody was part of that deal. Just got to go into Michigan and was that closing out the regular season?
Well, Boyd Hogan, he tames the tricky triangle here tonight. Win number 7 on the season at Pocono Raceway. Congratulations once again, Boyd. Go enjoy the victory, and we'll see you in 2 weeks' time when you guys head to Michigan, getting closer to the end of this regular season on the eves of the playoffs.
Thank you, sir.
So as Boyd Hogan continues to celebrate his victory here tonight, it does not look like we have our other podium finishers on standby. Agno Phillip, our runner-up finisher, or Nathan Jurgensen, our final driver on the podium. So we're going to start winding down our coverage here tonight. Obviously, we knew that this was going to be a race of strategy. It was going to be a race of strategy, either fuel wise or tire wise. I think we got a little bit of both here. And it really just kind of came down. I think you hit the nail on the head. Just who was going to be able to save their tires for the long run. Boyd Hogan showed some good short run speed, but also showed he had a good truck for the long run.
Yeah, it showed that him topping off the fuel underneath that caution was really the key to his victory here tonight. He was able to get those fresher tires than everybody else because he was able to stay out longer underneath the green flag run and ultimately led to his victory here tonight. Boyd Hogan was able to hold on in those last few laps, no matter how loose that car was, and Philip just wasn't quite able to make the comeback.
That we heard there, even from Boyd Hogan, he's expecting in 2 weeks' time Michigan to be a bit of a wild card race. Not certain just exactly what type of racing we're going to see. So, what is the goal, do you think, for a lot of these drivers when we get there, especially drivers that are either locked in or have an opportunity to lock their way into the playoffs? I mean, do you kind of, if you're someone that you know is going to point your way in, regardless of if you end up winning or finishing on the toe hook? Do you kind of go all out and try and see if you can rack up some playoff points before you get to the regular season finale at Lucas Oil?
Yeah, I think for almost everybody, you want to kind of go all out at this point. You have most of the drivers that are in the top 10 in points right now are already locked into the playoffs, like Boyd Hogan, Christopher Hill, Braxton Deweese, Pfeffer, drivers like that. They can all really go for broke and just try to get as many playoff points as possible. But another driver really to watch out for to maybe go for broke is Richard Malugani if we see him out there next week. Because he made up some points here tonight and he might be the closest contender for the top 10 in points.
Getting closer to the end of the regular season, and a couple drivers trying to make some last minute bids for playoff positions. Again, we will be taking an off week next week, as will the Reaper Speedlab Truck Series drivers. But then August 3rd, we'll be back here for the penultimate race of the regular season, as we'll be at the 2 Mile Speedway / Super Speedway of Michigan International Speedway. We hope that you guys will join us for that one. We appreciate you joining us tonight for our coverage at Pocono Raceway. Boyd Hogan, your victor here tonight. Kyle, it's been a great one here this evening in the Pocono Mountains. Appreciate you joining me in the booth.
Appreciate you having me. Another great finish for Boyd Hogan. Looking forward to Michigan and then ending out the season at Lucas Oil.
Absolutely. Going to be a good one here down the home stretch for the Reaper Speed Lab Truck Series. For Kyle Lawrence, I'm Seth Cole. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday night, folks, as you've been watching another broadcast courtesy of the Flatout Racing Network.
This broadcast is the copyrighted work of Flatout Racing Network and may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of Flatout Racing Network and iRacing.com Motorsports Simulations. Flatout Racing Network would like to thank you for your support, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's broadcast.